Call the Jackson Electric Open Line at 672-KROE. That's 672-5763. Now, your hosts on the Jackson Electric Open Lines, Steve Sisson and Floyd Whiting.
Good morning and welcome to the Jackson Electric Open Lines. I am Floyd Whiting, here with my friends Steve Sisson, Trevor Jackson, Aaron Linden, Steve Schreffler, and Gene Sterling. Give us a call, 674-4443 or 672-5763. Now, before we go to the poll question, let's head on over here to Gene. Gene, you've got something going on. What's happening?
Yes, thanks, Floyd. It's our last classic Western movie, hosted by our pal here, Aaron Linden.
Mr. Linden.
I thought it would be a bit precocious to announce myself, so I brought Gene in.
Yeah, I'm not scared of precocious.
Step right up to that platform, huh?
Yeah.
What are we going to see?
Dodge City, Errol Flynn. It's 1939 Technicolor. Cool. Technicolor is in 39, if you can believe a color movie. They made a lot of black and white movies after 1939.
Yeah.
But it's striking colors. You'll get a kick out of it. But Errol Flynn is a sheriff of Dodge City, and he comes to town to clean up the town, and has a great cast. Do you guys know? Ever heard of Big Boy Williams? Big Boy Williams was in a lot of westerns. He was a real Gomer character.
Yeah.
He was a football player and a wrestler. Him and Alan Hale is Gilligan's skipper's
the
dad.
skipper.
Yep.
They are the comical thing. And Alan Hale has come to town and he's taken the pledge to quit drinking. And he goes to a revival meeting, and it's called the Pure Prairie League.
Okay. All right.
Where the Pure Prairie League got the name.
That's where they got the name, yeah.
Wow.
Mid-skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you'll see this. He wears a big old button on his shirt that says Pure Prairie League. While he's in this meeting, the greatest saloon brawl in all of Western movies breaks out. And it's the Civil War all over again in this.
Nice.
I swear, nowhere has so many guys been thrown through windows. and they just level the place. But Bruce Cabot is the bad guy. Bruce Cabot was Fay Wray's boyfriend in King Kong.
Yeah.
Remember the guy with slip-on tennis shoes? Bob's Watson is a little boy, and they used to call him Crybaby in Hollywood because he could pucker up and ball on cue.
At the drop of a hat.
That was his talent.
That's a good skill to have.
Superpower.
I could do things with that
Not
skill.
all heroes wear capes.
It's and so what I'd like to say, it's a great movie. This is a movie you can take kids, grandkids, great-grandkids, take them to a full-on cinema of a Western movie. This is a Western movie matinee made for Western movie matinees, and it's kid-friendly. There is really very little gunplay. Lots of guns being shot in the air,
Right.
Especially during the saloon fight. But this is a great movie. If you want to give your kids an experience that they'll never have, probably, to see a Western movie on a big screen.
Now, this is the chance to do it. All right.
And we saved the best for last, really. I mean, come on.
We're still talking about the movie there, buddy.
Oh, yeah, the movie.
I didn't want to really get into a lot of this that I might spoil his thing that he's going to do on stage. So other than that, I'd really like to invite everyone to come out Sunday, 2 o'clock, YO Theater, free popcorn, and a experience that you can bring the family to that they will remember all their life.
All right, Gene, thank you so much. And there you go, folks. Sunday, 2 o'clock, the YO Theater. It's cold outside anyway. And this is an experience.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
This is an experience that the kids are, rarely going to get again. So take them out there. We've actually got a caller straight out the gate. Go ahead. You're on the Jackson Electric Open Line.
Yes, this is Alfred Hill in Sheridan, and I want to talk about Cyrus Western and the stunt that he pulled. There's a legitimate TAC registered with the state to raise funds for various candidates, and he chose to spend over $5,000 to put together a wanted bill and make allegations about the four members of that TAC. and then he turned around and mailed it to many, many, many people in Sheridan and Johnson County. And then he turned around and claims that his broadside is sponsored by a legitimate PAC, which was a lie. It was investigated by the Sheriff's Department here in Sheridan and found to be a lie. And then he went over to Idaho and got one of those pranking authorizations to send them all through the United States Post Office. I don't know how the Post Office considers that when he's not a PAC. He's falsifying that. But now the question is, what do we do about Cyrus Western, who is not only falsely attacking other people, claiming to have a legitimate PAC, but he is also taking advantage of all the people that receive that in the city of city of Sheridan. Now, I don't know what prosecution can be done by the state on this matter. However, what the House of Representatives can do is to take him off of all committee assignments. Simply strip all of his committee assignments from him and show that they are, in fact, going to enforce the laws that they themselves have passed concerning PACs and not allow him the voice that he was attacking the legitimate PAC for exercising.
All right. Well, thank you for the call. Aaron, you said you knew just a little bit about this. What's going, because this is an ongoing investigation, correct?
It is kind of, because the county attorney, Clint Beaver, who was on council with me, actually said because none of those people were running this year, that it actually didn't violate any of the PAC laws that they have set up currently. It was more of an informational mailer in a way. So right now, yes, aside from maybe the House being able to do something and take him off committees or whatever, there really is supposedly no further action that can be taken to prosecute legally. At this point. That's my understanding.
Okay, so that's, and to be fair with everybody out there listening right now, that's as you understand
That's
it.
as I understand
All right?
it.
None of us here are lawyers. None of us here know the
Thank
PAC
goodness.
laws. Yeah. But so it sounds like legally he did nothing wrong. Legally. Okay.
Now, morally, ethically, who knows? That's up to you to decide.
Yeah,
But yeah, right at this point, there's no further prosecution happening.
Okay, but some sort of investigation is still ongoing that we know of, or
I think just more into what the details of it were. It was printed in like Utah or somewhere, Colorado, and it was used. The return mail address was Cyrus's P.O. box. Bill Novotny, apparently out of Buffalo, paid for it. On and on. There's some details that are still.
But they're still checking things out. All right. Well, that's what we know, folks. Probably the same amount that you know. Not much on that one. We're going to have to wait and see just exactly what they find as we go forward on that. All right. We got another caller before we get to the poll question. Go ahead. You're on the Jackson Electric Open Lines.
Hello.
Hello.
I would like to know why you
Could you do me
did
a
not
quick
call.
favor, and could you turn down your radio for me, please?
I would like to know why you did not ask Bill Novotny when you had him sitting there in an interview yesterday why he's running all over the place, basically laundering money for this flyer that went out against private citizens.
Because it's, I'll tell you what.
Listen. Everybody who got this flyer understood that it was major intimidation. We shouldn't be afraid of our government.
No, you shouldn't. And the reason I didn't ask is because it was an ongoing investigation. And you're going to learn nothing from anyone during an ongoing investigation. They will get to the bottom of this. This will be sought out. This will be figured out. And then, once we know what's going on, and it's not simple allegations, then we can ask that question. Otherwise, it's pretty unethical to go ahead and ask a question of somebody involved in an ongoing investigation. I don't do it with law enforcement, and I don't do it with political matters. When we know more, then we can sit down and talk about it. Does that make sense?
Yes and no. I mean, it just sounds like you're reflecting what goes on in national media.
Nah, if you want the truth, I'm doing the exact opposite of what goes on in national media. I deal in facts, not rhetoric, not political advantage or disadvantage. I deal in facts. I deal in situations that I know about instead of just talking out of my third point of contact.
Well, I'm just really disappointed that people who were elected, because they can only lose their office through being through elections, and that's the way it should be. But this is such intimidation. I just cannot believe this. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that goes on in California. It's not okay. And I do hope they find the bottom of what's going on. But as a public member, I'm so tired of rules for thee, but not for me. And thank you for your consideration and following this. And I hope you do your due diligence. I
Absolutely.
would appreciate that. Thank you.
But once again, just so everybody knows, because my news director asked me the same question, I am not going to question someone on rumor, speculation, or rhetoric. I'm going to sit them down and have a conversation about something that has been proven. And until that's done, it's all questions in the wind. All right, we've got another caller. Go ahead. You're on the Jackson Electric Open Line.
Yes, good morning. Gentlemen, it is my understanding that the declination to decline to prosecute regarding wino was given out on December 30th. I have a copy of the declination from the county attorney's office. They declined to prosecute, and reason given why. So now what has happened is, regarding wino, it's sort of out in the public arena now. There will be no prosecution coming from the county attorney's office, and this was December 30th. It is correct that Mr. Western did hire an attorney here in town on the 4th, January 4th. But the basic information regarding this, and Gail Simmons and Christy Haswell's Republican grassroots, they too, a PAC violation. And try and remember that both of these PAC violations were turned in by your election clerk's office. Your county clerk was the party to ask for investigation. Now it's out in the public arena. Will individuals in the private sector sue, or will they go to a district court to ask for a review of actions? I don't know. But clearly, some things did occur, and heck, I've got copies of both reports, the wino report from Boot Hill and the report on the Republican grassroots PAC. An interesting thing to note, and I would just drop this and leave it. Speaking with county attorney's office yesterday, it was stated to me that precinct men and women are not public officials. They're not holding a public office. And I said, but there is no definition in Wyoming statutory code defining public office. So I queried where this came from. There may be something that could be challenged vis-a-vis the declination. But that's where the challenge will go now, to settle the issue. And those are my thoughts. That's all I wanted to say, and thank you very much.
All right, we've got yet another caller. Go ahead, you're on the Jackson Electric Open Line. Good morning, caller.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, so this happens to be Gail Simmons. I was calling about something completely different, but I'm just going to take a second and address that. So the violation that I did, and frankly, I made a mistake. I owned. But also, one of the requirements is that it has to be knowingly violated. And I was personally paying for some flyers, and I had some people say, well, wait a minute, that's a lot of money. Let us help you with that. At that point, when I said, oh, sure, if you want to, that's when I should have created a PAC. And I acknowledged that, and when I found out about it, I created the PAC within the grace period provided under the law, made the required reports, and that was the end of it. That's actually why it wasn't prosecuted, because it was a unintentional error on my part. If I really wanted to game the system, I'd have taken the money and kept those out saying paid for by Gail Simmons. But that's not why I'm calling. I'm calling regarding the Wyoming legislature. I'm down here, and on the 1st of this month, in the House Judiciary, they discussed House Bill 152, Life is a Human Right Act. And in that is Representative Barry Crago, who represents Johnson and a portion of Sheridan County. And it was really interesting because he is getting ripped apart by those who don't understand either what he said or the legal system or the legislative process. And it's really amazing because he is the most effective legislator down there in supporting and promoting legislation that actually is pro-life. So it's really an amazing. So what he pointed out is that if they pass this bill, which is both premature and extremely poorly written, taking aside the issues with the constitutionality of specifically identifying in a bill that you're doing so for religious purposes, which is strictly not allowed. And oh, by the way, they also claimed property rights, and he pointed out correctly that a human being, whether in the womb or out, is not property. But the legal process itself is where he has an issue with it. There was a law passed, the trigger ban, that is currently in the legal process. And what he pointed out is if they pass this bill, which essentially removes that other law that's already in effect, the result is an immediate dismissal of the existing lawsuit that will then immediately be followed by a lawsuit against this particular bill, which is not as strong from a legal and constitutional basis as the one that's going through. And so he's against it because, as he put it, and he thinks that if you believe that abortion is killing a human being, they will actually allow for more killing. So I'm going to put up everywhere I can the clips from that video, and then I urge the people who are going after him to look up, Google Pyrrhic Victory, spelled Pyrrrhic, Pyrrhic Victory, and that's what he's trying to prevent.
Now, Gail, I believe, I want to say in a news story at some point, we actually did hear Representative Crago say this just isn't written to the point where it could survive a lawsuit. right? Like,
Exactly.
I'm almost positive I heard him. Basically, I mean, I'm summarizing here.
Yes.
But basically say this thing, yeah, sure, we can pass it. Everyone's going to pat each other on the back, give each other high fives, but it's not going to live its day in court.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well,
So one of the things that about being an observer of legislation is that regardless of how passionate you feel about something, and there's passion on both sides, the law is best when it is dispassionate.
absolutely. I agree 110% on that. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. All right, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to come back. I got another caller waiting on the line. This is the Jackson Electric Open Lines on 930 KROE, 103.9 FM, Sheridan.
Call Jackson Electric and you'll see the light. Maybe it's as simple as adding an extra outlet. Maybe it's as detailed as wiring an industrial building. Maybe it's high efficiency LED lighting or a fire alarm system, or phone system installation and repair. Maybe it's data system wiring, irrigation wiring, or electric motor sales and repair. Commercial, residential, industrial, agriculture, above ground, below ground. Call Jackson Electric and you'll see the light at 1851 North Main in Sheridan.
WYO Theater brings Western matinees back to the big screen. 2 p.m., the WYO features a hand-picked classic Western with a celebrity host. This Sunday, we have the final classic Western hosted by Aaron Linden. It's Dodge City, starring Errol Flynn. The Civil War is over. The Army's disbanded. The building of the West begins, and in 1872, the city of Dodge City is ruled by violence and shootings, only made worse by the railroad coming to town. The dispute between the future and the past plays out in an epic race between the train and the stagecoach. Dodge City features one of the greatest saloon fights in any Western movie. A new sheriff's in town, and all that wahooing is ordered to halt. Classic Western, sponsored by Jeff Ware and Carmel Timmons, Jim and Angie Navarro, The Neil Ranch, Letterbuck Car Wash, Christine Gemp Love Foundation, Truebuilt Builders, Mickey and Kathy McNichol, Vacutech, Gene and Vicki Sterling, and John and Helen Isley Family Foundation.
Good morning and welcome back to the Jackson Electric Open Lines. I'm Floyd Whiting here with my friends Steve Sisson, Trevor Jackson, Aaron Linden, and Steve Schreffler. Go ahead and give us a ring. 674-4443 or 672-5763. A lot to talk about today. We've talked about some issues going on down legislature. We've talked about some issues revolving around Representative Western and County Commission Chair Bill Novotny, a flyer. Even been under the hot seat myself today over not questioning someone. But one thing that I have always tried to put forth to you as a public, I will not act on something until we actually know the information. And I do not like to question individuals about ongoing investigations. There's plenty of time to ask them about it afterwards. But let an investigation take its course. That's something that I think the national news could take a cue on.
Yeah, I think there's a huge disservice when they have the whole discussion and assumptions and speculation.
Absolutely.
I think it taints those trials horribly.
Absolutely. And, Gail Simmons said it best. There's passion. Okay, well, we can take her phrase for that bill and we can apply it all across the board. People are passionate about this kind of stuff, and that's great. I'm glad that you are. But the fact of the matter is, do not let that passion override logical thinking
or facts.
Right.
Step back, take a breath, and actually know what you're talking about before you start talking about someone, something. And if you don't have that information, or if the information is in the middle of an investigation and even law enforcement is still learning something, then you are being premature in your judgment. And that, unfortunately, is a human condition. All right, we've got other callers. Go ahead. You're on the Jackson Electric Open Line.
Hello, this is Brian Miller. How are you doing today?
Excuse me?
This is Brian Miller. How are you today?
We're doing fine. How are you, Mr. Miller?
Doing all right. Hey, I got a couple of comments on the two investigations that you guys have already talked about. And I'll start off saying this: I'm the chairman of the Sheridan County Party, Republican Party. And we were asked by dozens and literally hundreds by the time it was over, individuals to investigate both of these, or to at least make a complaint against both of the green card case and the little wanted flyers, mailers that went out. We did that. Those investigations are complete. The reports are complete. The file numbers are 220818S04 and 220818S05. You can get them if you would like. There's also been a very good podcast put out by David Iverson. He basically went through the second case there, the case with Western and Novotny. Why? Because he's part of, he's down in Johnson County. There are two things that I really wanted to get across here. One, the investigations are complete, so people can make up their minds for themselves. Just go down and request the reports, or look at any one of the almost dozen people now that have those reports out there and that are talking to folks about it. These cases, the first one was already sent down to the Secretary of State for review, and the second case is on its way. We've gotten a preliminary word that the argument to toss them out is not true. It doesn't work. It's not a good argument to throw them out. And we'll see what the Secretary of State's office ends up doing with those. Second is that the cases, both of them, have way more than just a simple election code violation. Both were election code violations that were attempted to be covered up. One internally, in the second case with Western, where they went and actually got a check from a third county and went ahead and used that money out of, and it wasn't Bill Novotny who paid for it. Bill Novotny ended up sending the check in, but the money came out of Mr. Western's, or Representative Western's committee. So they knew it was wrong. They attempted to cover it up. There's problems there. Okay. The second one, the earlier one with Gail, love it that she was on the air again. Every time she goes on the air or steps in front of the legislature and speaks, it just adds more to what she did in public. And I'm glad of that, because that may end up coming back to haunt her down the line. But bottom line is, beyond the election code violations, there's conspiracy, there's cover-ups, there's fraud involved, there's financial and other crimes that are noted throughout both reports. And all you need to do is grab those reports, because they are complete. The initial decision has been made by our county attorney not to pursue, and that is being worked at the state level now. And I also know that there are several lawsuits that are likely going to go as well, because that may be the only way to get the other crimes that were committed in this looked at. Questions?
None.
Okay. So I just needed to get that out there, because I can't stand to have you say, there's still lots going on, because there's not. It's done. What happens now is
but the Secretary of State is reviewing all of it.
The Secretary of State doesn't have the second case yet, but the first case, they already have it. They'll have the second one here this week, because they only came out. I mean, when you look at how long it took to get the case, and I'll say this, Deputy Hill did an excellent job on going through and investigating these. Excellent job. He followed through. He got the appropriate warrants to get the information, because people kept trying to keep it from him. He did exactly what he needed to do, and he's provided reports that show, like I said, the conspiracy that runs through effectively a group of people. And you can figure out who that is yourself by grabbing the reports.
All right, there it is, folks. And as soon as the Secretary of State reviews all that, we'll let you know what's going on, because I imagine that's going to be something that they make public quite quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Questions, comments?
No.
Let's get to the poll question.
Should we do the poll question?
Let's do the poll question.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it is a good one. The funny thing, we've kind of talked about this a couple of times now. We've done poll questions that ended up being very timely.
Prophetic.
Yes. And this was one of them. The First Northern Bank of Wyoming poll question for this week was, now that practically everyone has a camera with them at all times, do you think we will see more or less unexplained phenomena? And we had 76% saying that they expect to see more, and 24% expecting to see less.
Now, I actually had somebody ask me, what do you mean we're going to see less because there's more phones and more cameras out there? And it's quite simple. Less because I'm talking about actual unidentified phenomenon.
Right.
Anything that you and I can sit here and say, okay, that could be because we don't know. And if everyone's got a camera in their hand and we all film the same event, you might run to the internet and say, we got a UFO. A meteorologist who was around the area might go, no, you've got an unusual looking cloud and it's formed in this way.
And the more,
thus removing the phenomenon.
The more cameras you have on stuff, the more data you have to analyze, and the more likely it is to be explained.
Exactly.
So that's why we could have less.
And I see that kind of stuff all the time. If there's Reddit users out there, you can jump on Reddit and actually there's an entire site or an entire subreddit, I guess they call it, where individuals look at photos and go, that's not what you think it is.
Right.
That is a this. Yep. That's completely natural. And they debunk everything. And I love people who debunk stuff. So that is why that was an option. With more cameras, will we actually be eliminating the paranormal as opposed to propagating more?
Yeah, when you have one fuzzy photo that it's really hard to tell what's going on, you can have all kinds of speculation about it. If you have 200 pictures from different angles and you still can't explain it, that's much more difficult to get to that point.
Then it's something that we should actually look into. Yep. And speaking of looking into stuff, we got ourselves a balloon. I don't even know how to introduce that. We got a Chinese balloon floating over Montana.
Billings, Montana.
Of all places. Now, let's bring us up to date on just exactly what happened. Shreff, you know a lot about this situation. Raptors were deployed. We're watching this balloon now as it basically kind of drifts around. Where is it now? North Dakota?
No, I think it's farther east. I think possibly Tennessee area.
Oh, it's really made the rounds. All right. So the object on the bottom of this balloon, we've seen a couple close-up photos of this. This thing looks like a satellite.
Yeah.
I mean, for lack of a better term, it looks like a satellite.
Yeah, your first impression is almost like the one of the solar wings of the space station. It has that kind of layout to it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what it looks like. Yep. And they said it was, 3 buses large?
Yes.
The U.S. will use any unit of measure except for the metric system.
No, absolutely will
it's
not.
It's measured
use
in buses.
It's measured in buses.
Measured in buses.
So this isn't a small thing. So the U.S. has been keeping an eye on it. Some trips to China have been canceled.
Yeah.
But, so on the way home, I was really thinking about this. And I'm no general, I'm no strategist, but strategically, the northern part of the United States would be the dumbest area to try and invade. So what are they actually trying to look for?
Yeah, and the question is, obviously they have satellites, and they can get a lot of information from that. So what are they getting from this that they can't get from that?
Exactly. So the U.S. is keeping a close track of that Chinese high-altitude surveillance balloon. That is what it's suspected to be. Speaking for the Pentagon, Brigadier General Patrick Ryder said the U.S. government has been tracking the balloon for several days as it's made its way over the United States, adding that it was traveling at an altitude well above commercial air traffic and does not present a military or physical threat to the people on the ground. Now, speaking on background, a senior U.S. defense official said senior military officials have advised President Joe Biden not to shoot it down due to fear that the debris could pose a safety threat to the people on the ground. Aaron's got some theories about that because this is what he does. We don't know that it's surveillance, do we?
We don't know what it is.
They suspect.
But they bring satellites down and they can calculate where those are going to crash into the ocean, whatever. I mean, they could calculate, if they shot this down, where it would fall. You could do it in a very remote area. I don't think it's debris field, quote unquote, that they're worried about. We don't know what's on the thing. What if you drop it and it's a dirty bomb? What if we, so to give that kind of guise of, well, we're worried about people on the ground. No, they just said it doesn't pose a threat. They could calculate where they're going to drop this thing. They're scared to drop this thing. And probably with good reason.
bad precedent to keep it in the sky.
Well, it's a very bad precedent to keep it in the sky. If we go back to 1945,
well, let's go steal it and find out what exactly it is.
Right. Yeah. But the Japanese launched balloons with bombs on them, killed a family in Oregon, blew up outside of Thermopolis in Wyoming.
Years later.
Very much the same kind of thing. Why would we not? Yeah, it sets a dangerous precedent going, okay, Xi, fly a bunch of balloons over the U.S.
They're
what do we
apparently
care?
not going to do anything.
Right.
Yeah. So this thing's actually gone over a couple areas that we could, I guess you could say, define as sensitive.
Yeah, I mean, there's military installations and stuff in this area
Right.
that they could possibly be looking at.
But once again, I mean, if you really think about an access point into the United States, I'm sorry, but the northern section is not where I would think.
No.
We could walk right in. There was I believe it was a Japanese admiral who actually said he did not want to invade the United States during World War II because there was a gun behind every blade of grass.
And he's not wrong.
And now there's a pile of guns behind every blade of grass. And so strategically, it's just not smart. But there are multiple other pieces of information that you can learn just by looking. So here's the question. Even the United States military has come forward and said they're not learning anything from this balloon that they can't learn from their own satellites that are already in the sky at a faster rate, more secure, more covertly.
Right.
I mean, they're not seeing anything that they can't see from space anyhow.
Right.
So what the heck is this balloon doing up there?
That's the question.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And that's the question everybody's asking.
Yeah, I guess we're assuming it's observing, but maybe there's other purposes for it. I mean, what equipment is on there? There's a lot of stuff hanging off the bottom of it. What is all that stuff?
And it's a large array.
Yeah.
Now,
well, and do you think if we launched a balloon, this just is hot off the press from the better Aaron, if we had a balloon and it was in China, you think they'd just be like, it's a U.S. balloon, we'll just leave it?
No, absolutely not.
They would take it out and they would probably, who knows what.
They wouldn't be concerned about what happened when it landed. I mean,
see, that's the thing.
That's the difference.
Look, when you and I were having this discussion before the show, I've got to ask the question, are you willing to bet someone's life on that? That if we shoot it down, everything's going to be fine. I'm not willing to bet human life.
I'm scared as to what is on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Quite honestly. Because, okay, so they're not learning more than they could with a satellite, right? They're not observing, our EPA regulations probably. It's not taking air samples. What is it? Well, that then becomes the issue, is if you do take it out, what happens?
It could just be an experiment, too, to see what we would do in that situation.
Some kid's science project?
I mean, just to gauge our reaction to it. It could just be for that purpose.
Next time it's an EMP.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, when we were over in the sandbox, there were more than one situation where when you drive up and you're like, okay, that's a boomer. So everyone stops. Now, what are we going to do with it? We either call EOD, and I don't know if I'm going to get anyone in trouble here, but in some situations we were like, hey, we're far enough back. Put a bullet in that thing. And we blow it up, blow in place. All right, continue mission. Let's move on. In one situation, there was a burlap sack with a very large object in it, about the size of a .155 round. I was on loan to a squad because I hated being on the back wire. And so they simply asked me, get up on that hood, make sure that you got your medal in front of you, but I want you to open that sack with a bullet. Best shot I ever made in my life. One shot, one bullet. With someone else's weapon, I opened up that burlap sack. And it was probably about 45 yards away. And I managed to actually rip that bag right down the middle. When the wind caught it and it opened it up, it was a rock. Why did they put it there? They didn't put it there to just instill fear. As soon as I saw that rock, I knew we're being watched. Now they're learning how we react to these things. Did we drive by it? Once we found it, what are they going to do? So the idea that this balloon might just be drifting across the United States just so China could get I mean, that's a critical piece of information.
Well, wind patterns for nuclear fallout, whatever. I mean, it could just be a wind pattern study. It could just be to gauge what our reaction is.
It could. All right. I've got to go to a caller. Good morning. You're on the Jackson Electric Open Line.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You were saying what business would they have up north? Pretty sure there's fields of ICBMs to begin with, so that's pretty critical.
Yeah, and what are they going to do with that?
Well, number one, we don't know what their technology is that's flying above, but I believe you're probably right on it's how we react. And we reacted by grounding all flights, I think Helena and Billings. But I wanted to call in and let everybody remember that we just had the 80th anniversary of Stalingrad. And once again, we have German tanks going to start confronting Russia. And our mercenary groups with Mozart were just on a podcast, and the CEO of the Mozart group, in a drunken stupor, continues to talk about how the Ukrainians are killing POWs. And so it's right out there for us, and we need to be aware of who these people are that we're supporting. And now we have Bill Gates, along with other leaders, letting everybody know that, yeah, this is a very corrupt country, the Ukraine, and there's a lot of money from corporations investing in there so they can take over Ukraine. And this goes into the Bidens and Hunter Biden's laptop, talking about the bio labs, 30-some biolabs that the Bidens are benefiting from financially.
All right. Thank you for your call. We're moving on. Good morning. You're on the Jackson Electric Open Lines.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Hey, I wanted to, been listening to some of these calls about this Cyrus Western and Novotny attack piece. And, you know, I think an important thing to note is that one of your earlier callers had it right. I mean, that's intimidation from two politicians against private citizens who are the voters. I mean, you know, what's next? If I put up a yard sign, should I expect an attack ad on me from sitting politicians because they're not going to be prosecuted? I mean, that's outrageous.
Agreed.
So, Aaron, I think it was, said that the reason, I think you said Clint Beaver, said that the reason the county's attorney is not pursuing this case is because none of the people being attacked were running for office. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So here's a question. So the process, from what I understand, and another caller kind of described it, so a complaint goes to the clerk. If it's viable, it goes to the attorney. The attorney reads the complaint, and if it's viable, sends it to the sheriff's office. All these things happened on this wino thing. The sheriff's office investigated it and sent their report back to the attorney. And the reason that the attorney says, at this point anyway, that they're not going to prosecute it is because none of the people who were attacked were politicians. Or, well, let me rephrase that. I'm sorry. None of the people who were attacked were running for office. Okay, do I have all that right?
That's my understanding of it, yes.
Okay. So, the flip side of that coin, so if somebody was running for office who had been attacked, then they would prosecute. So here's my point that I want to make. There's clearly crimes involved here. The reason for not prosecuting is because it was against the wrong person. Well, here's what everybody should be chilled by. There's this thing called equal protection under the rule of law. a crime is a crime, and it should not matter who the crime is against. This violates that concept. Not to prosecute it simply because the person that was violated was this class of person or that class of person is absolutely wrong under the fundamental concept of equal protection of the rule of law. And in fact, this puts it on its head. Their approach is protecting politicians who ran the ad, and this response would protect a candidate were they running to be one of the political insiders, and it's leaving hung out to dry the private citizens, the ones who elected the county attorney, right? It's saying, we're not going to protect you. If you run for office and try to be one of us, we'll protect you. If you're Cyrus Western or Bill Novotny, we'll protect you. But if you're a private citizen who gets your name and your picture and lies printed about you, defamed, for something as simple as putting up a yard sign, metaphorically speaking, we're not going to protect you. If that doesn't have everybody outraged, I mean, you guys sitting in the studio there, think about that. You put up a yard sign, and the next week, there's a mailer saying, so-and-so is a dirty, rotten dog from California, and he's sowing hate and division, and blah-blah-blah-blah-blah. You know, your poll last week was prophetic indeed, right? Your poll last week.
I got 1 minute left, buddy. I got just 1 minute.
All right, are you all running for office? The answer is 70% no. Why? Because of this. This is a way different kettle of fish. These people aren't even running for office, and they're being attacked.
And this is another reason.
They won't be prosecuted.
Just one more reason why I really disagree with PACs. I do not like them as a practice. Everything starts to get real muddy.
Right. Yes.
All right. You've been listening to the Jackson Electric Open Lines on 930 KROE and 103.9 FM. Sheridan.